The Starship Axiom hung in the void, a gleaming needle against the velvet black of space. Its hull thrummed with the low pulse of ion engines. A heartbeat felt through the soles of Commander Ilara Voss' boots as she strode down the main corridor. The recycled air tasted stale on her tongue, carrying the faint tang of ozone and sweat. Crew members nodded respectfully as she passed, their eyes averting from her stern gaze. Ilara's fingers twitched, longing for the weight of her sidearm. But weapons weren't permitted outside the armory, not even for the ship's commander. She paused at a viewport, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. The Axiom had left known space months ago, pushing deeper into the unexplored frontier than any human vessel before. Their mission, to seek out habitable worlds, expand humanity's reach, and perhaps make first contact with alien life. But something was wrong. Ilara could feel it in her bones, an itch between her shoulder blades that wouldn't go away. Little things, whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, crew members exchanging meaningful glances. And now, this summons to the bridge. The lift doors hissed open, revealing the nerve center of the Axiom. Holographic displays flickered with streams of data, status reports from every system on the ship. At the center stood Captain Darius Thorne, his weathered face creased with worry. "Commander," he said, nodding to Ilara, "we have a situation." Ilara's spine stiffened. "What kind of situation, sir?" Thorne's eyes darted to the other bridge officers before he spoke. "We've detected an unauthorized transmission from within the ship. Someone's been sending encrypted messages back towards Earth." The words hit Ilara like a physical blow. A spy, a traitor, here, on her ship. "How long?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "We're not sure," Thorne admitted. "Could be days, could be weeks. Maybe even since we left port." Ilara's mind raced. Who could it be? And more importantly, why? The Axiom's mission was one of peaceful exploration. What secrets could be worth betraying? "I want a full security sweep," she said. "Every deck, every system, and I want a list of everyone who's had access to our long-range communications array." Thorne nodded. "Already underway. But Commander, we need to keep this quiet. If word gets out, we could have a panic on our hands." Ilara understood. The Axiom was a closed system, a tiny bubble of humanity hurtling through the void. Fear and paranoia could spread like a virus, tearing the crew apart from within. "Understood, sir," she said. "He'll handle it personally." As she left the bridge, Ilara's mind whirled with possibilities. The crew of the Axiom had been handpicked, vetted, and trained for years. They were the best of the best. And yet, one of them was a traitor. She made her way to the security office, a cramped room filled with monitors showing feeds from every corner of the ship. Chief of Security Malik Reza looked up as she entered, his dark eyes narrowing. "Commander," he said, standing. "I assume the captain filled you in?" Ilara nodded. "What have you found?" Malik tapped a few keys, bringing up a complex diagram on the main screen. "The transmissions are being bounced through multiple systems, making them hard to trace, but we've narrowed it down to this section of the ship." He highlighted a portion of the diagram. Ilara's heart sank. It was the science labs, where some of the Axiom's most sensitive research was conducted. "Any suspects?" she asked. Malik shook his head. "Too many people have access. Scientists, technicians, maintenance crews. We're going through the logs, but it's like finding a needle in a haystack," Ilara finished. She rubbed her temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. "All right, I want everything you have on my secure tablet. And Malik, keep this under wraps. No one outside of senior staff needs to know." The security chief nodded, his expression grim. "Yes, ma'am." As Ilara left the security office, her comm unit chirped. It was Dr. Imani Okafor, the ship's chief medical officer and Ilara's closest friend aboard the Axiom. "Ilara," Imani's voice came through, tinged with worry. "Can you come to the med bay? There's something you need to see." "On my way," Ilara replied, quickening her pace. The med bay was a stark contrast to the rest of the ship. While most of the Axiom was all sleek lines and utilitarian efficiency, the medical facilities were bright and sterile. The sharp smell of disinfectant stung Ilara's nostrils as she entered. Imani was waiting, her usual warm smile replaced by a look of concern. Thanks for coming, she said, leading Ilara to a private examination room. Inside, a young ensign sat on the edge of a biobed, his face pale and drawn. Ilara recognized him as Ensign Caspian Reed, one of the junior engineers. "What's going on?" Ilara asked, looking between Imani and the ensign. Imani's voice was low. "Caspian came to me with some concerns. He overheard something he shouldn't have." Ilara turned to the young man. "Ensign Reed, what did you hear?" Caspian swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously. I was doing maintenance in the Jeffries tubes near the science labs. I heard voices. They were talking about sabotage." Ilara's blood ran cold. "Sabotage? Are you sure?" The ensign nodded. "They said something about making sure the mission fails, and they mentioned your name, Commander. They said you couldn't be allowed to find out." Ilara exchanged a glance with Imani. This was worse than they thought. Not just espionage, but active sabotage. "Did you recognize the voices?" Ilara asked. Caspian shook his head. "No, Mom. They were keeping their voices low. But there were at least 2 of them." Ilara's mind raced. 2 conspirators, maybe more. And they knew she was onto them. "Ensign," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I need you to keep this to yourself. Don't tell anyone else what you heard. Can you do that?" Caspian nodded, his face a mix of fear and determination. "Yes, Mom, I want to help. The Axiom's mission is important. I won't let anyone jeopardize it." Ilara managed a small smile. "Good man. Dr. Okafor will make sure you're safe, and Caspian, thank you for coming forward." As they left the examination room, Imani pulled Ilara aside. "What's going on?" she whispered. "First the unauthorized transmissions, now this?" Ilara sighed. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's big and dangerous." Imani's dark eyes searched Ilara's face. "Be careful, El, if they're willing to sabotage the ship." "I know," Ilara said, squeezing her friend's arm. "Watch your back, too, and keep an eye on Ensign Reed, if the saboteurs find out he overheard them." Imani nodded grimly. "I'll make sure he's protected." As Ilara left the medbay, her mind whirled with possibilities. Who could be behind this? And what was their endgame? The Axiom's mission was one of peaceful exploration. What could anyone gain by sabotaging it? She made her way to her quarters, needing a moment to think. The small room was spartanly furnished, but it was her sanctuary. Ilara sank into her desk chair, calling up the ship's personnel files on her secure tablet. Names and faces scrolled by, each one a potential traitor. Dr. Zain Nassar, the brilliant but arrogant head of xenobiology. Lieutenant Freya Larson, whose family had deep ties to Earth's corporate interests. Even Malik Reza, the security chief himself, couldn't be entirely above suspicion. A knock at her door startled Ilara from her thoughts. "Come in," she called, closing the personnel files. The door slid open to reveal Axel Reeves, the ship's chief engineer. His usually cheerful face was creased with worry. "Commander," he said, stepping inside, "we've got a problem in engineering." Ilara's heart sank. "What kind of problem?" Axel ran a hand through his thinning hair. "The kind that could blow us all to kingdom come if we're not careful. Someone's been tampering with the antimatter containment systems." Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. The Axiom's faster-than-light drive relied on the controlled annihilation of matter and antimatter. If the containment failed, "How bad is it?" she asked, already moving towards the door. "Bad enough," Axel said, falling into step beside her. "We caught it during a routine diagnostic. If we hadn't..." He trailed off, but Ilara could fill in the blanks. They'd all be dead, nothing more than scattered atoms in the void. As they hurried towards engineering, Ilara's mind raced. This was no longer just espionage or sabotage. This was attempted mass murder. The engineering deck thrummed with barely contained power. Banks of computers monitored every aspect of the ship's systems, from life support to the mighty engines that propelled them through space. Axel led Ilara to a secluded workstation, well away from the bustle of the main engineering area. "I didn't want to risk anyone overhearing," he explained, calling up a series of complex diagrams. Ilara studied the screens, her frown deepening. She wasn't an engineer, but she knew enough to recognize the severity of the situation. "How long would we have had?" she asked. Axel's face was grim. Hours maybe. The saboteur knew what they were doing. They made subtle changes, things that wouldn't show up on casual inspection, if the containment had failed. He shook his head. We wouldn't have had time to evacuate. Hell, we wouldn't have had time to scream. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. Can you trace who made the changes? Working on it, Axel said. But they covered their tracks well. Whoever did this, they have high-level access and serious technical skills. That narrowed the list of suspects, but not by much. Most of the senior staff and a good chunk of the science team had the necessary clearance and know-how. Lock it down, Alara ordered. I want every change to the antimatter systems to require dual authentication from now on. And Axel, keep this quiet if word gets out. The engineer nodded, understanding. Panic could be just as dangerous as sabotage on a ship like the Axiom. As Alara left engineering, her comm unit chirped again. It was Captain Thorne. Commander, my ready room, now. The captain's ready room was just off the bridge, a small oasis of calm amid the constant activity of running the ship. Thorne was waiting, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Sir, Alara said, coming to attention. Thorne's voice was low and dangerous. We've got a bigger problem than we thought, Commander. I just received a transmission from Earth Command. It seems our mystery saboteur has friends in high places. Alara's eyes widened. What do you mean? Thorne called up a holographic display showing an official-looking document. This is a direct order from the Admiralty. We're to abort the mission immediately and return to Earth. Alara felt her stomach drop. But why? We're farther out than any human ship has ever been. The discoveries we could make are apparently less important than whatever our saboteur is trying to protect, Thorne finished. He looked at Alara, his eyes hard. I don't like this, Commander. Something stinks, and it goes all the way to the top. Alara's mind raced. If Earth Command was involved, this was bigger than just the Axiom. But what could be so important that they'd risk the lives of the entire crew? What are your orders, sir? She asked. Thorne's jaw clenched. Officially, we're to begin preparations for the return journey immediately. Unofficially? He leaned in close. Find out what the hell is going on, Commander, and do it fast. Because I'm not turning this ship around until I know why. Alara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Yes, sir. I'll get to the bottom of this. As she left the ready room, Alara's mind whirled with possibilities. The saboteur, the encrypted transmissions, the order to return. It all had to be connected. But how? She made her way to the ship's main computer core, a massive room filled with banks of processors and data storage. The low hum of cooling systems filled the air, a constant white noise that set Alara's teeth on edge. Asha Kapoor, the ship's systems analyst, looked up as Alara entered. Commander, is everything all right? Alara forced a smile. Just fine, Asha. I need to run some high-level data analysis. Can you give me some privacy? Asha nodded, looking curious but not questioning the order. Of course, Commander. I'll make sure you're not disturbed. As soon as Asha left, Alara locked the door and began her search. She called up every scrap of data from the past few months, sensor logs, communication records, personnel files. There had to be a pattern, some connection she was missing. Hours passed as Alara sifted through the information. Her eyes burned from staring at screens, and her back ached from hunching over consoles. But slowly, painfully, a picture began to emerge. The unauthorized transmissions had started shortly after the Axiom had made a surprising discovery, a planet that showed signs of past civilization. Not just microbial life, but a species advanced enough to build cities, to reach for the stars. But the civilization was long dead. The cities were ruins, the technology decayed beyond recognition. Whatever had lived there was gone, leaving only tantalizing hints of what they had been. The science team had been ecstatic, eager to study the ruins and unravel the mystery of the vanished aliens. But then, nothing. The initial reports had been filed, and then all mention of the dead world had vanished from official records. Alara frowned, digging deeper. She found fragments of deleted files, traces of communications that had been scrubbed from the system. Someone had gone to great lengths to erase all evidence of the discovery. But why? What could be so important about a long-dead alien civilization that it was worth risking the entire mission. A soft chime interrupted Alara's thoughts. Someone was trying to override the door lock. She tensed, her hand going to the sidearm she wasn't carrying. The door slid open, revealing Captain Thorne. His face was grim. "Commander, we need to talk." Alara straightened, her mind racing. Had Thorne figured it out? Or was he part of the conspiracy? "Of course, sir," she said, keeping her voice steady. "What can I do for you?" Thorne stepped inside, the door sliding shut behind him. "I think you know, Commander. I've been monitoring your search. You've uncovered something, haven't you?" Alara hesitated, weighing her options. If Thorne was involved in the cover-up, revealing what she knew could be dangerous. But if he wasn't? She took a deep breath. "Yes, sir, I believe I have. It's about the planet we discovered, the one with the ruins." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Go on." Alara quickly outlined what she'd found, the deleted records, the scrubbed communications. "Someone's gone to a lot of trouble to hide this discovery," she finished. "But I don't understand why." Thorne was silent for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then, to Alara's surprise, he smiled. It was a grim, humorless expression. "You've done good work, Commander. Better than I expected, if I'm being honest." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. "Sir?" Thorne sighed, suddenly looking very old and very tired. "I suppose there's no point in hiding it any longer." "You're right, Commander." Thorne's eyes met Alara's, filled with a mix of resignation and determination. "The planet we discovered, it's not just a scientific curiosity. It's a powder keg that could ignite a war across the galaxy." Alara's mind reeled. "A war? But how? There's no one left on that world." "No," Thorne agreed. "But what they left behind. Commander, we found technology. Weapons beyond anything humanity has ever dreamed of. Devices that could reshape planets or destroy them entirely." The implications hit Alara like a physical blow. If such technology fell into the wrong hands. "Earth Command wants us to secure it," she said, understanding dawning. "To bring it back before anyone else can claim it." Thorne nodded. "And there are factions within our own government who would use it to establish Earth as the dominant power in known space. Others who would destroy it to prevent that very thing." "The saboteur," Alara breathed. "They're trying to stop us from returning with the technology." "Exactly," Thorne said. "But it's not that simple. There are other interested parties." Before Alara could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the computer core in an eerie glow. Alara's comm unit crackled to life. It was Axel, his voice tight with panic. "Commander, we've got multiple hull breaches. We're being boarded." Thorne's face went pale. "They're here," he whispered. "Who?" Alara demanded. But the captain was already moving, pulling her towards the door. "No time to explain," he said. "We need to get to the bridge, now." They raced through the corridors, passing panicked crew members and the sounds of distant weapons fire. Alara's mind whirled. Who was attacking them? How had they found the Axiom so far from known space? As they neared the bridge, a figure stepped out from a side passage. Alara recognized Dr. Zain Nassar, the xenobiologist. But something was wrong. His eyes were cold, inhuman, and in his hand was a weapon unlike anything Alara had ever seen. "Captain," Zain said, his voice oddly flat. "Commander, I'm afraid I can't let you reach the bridge." Thorne stepped in front of Alara, his own sidearm drawn. "Stand down, Doctor. That's an order." Zain's lips curled in a humorless smile. "I'm afraid your orders no longer apply, Captain. The Axiom serves a higher purpose now." Before either of them could react, Zain fired. A beam of sickly green energy lanced out, catching Thorne square in the chest. The captain crumpled without a sound. Alara dove for cover, her mind racing. Zain, the saboteur. But why? And what had happened to him? "It's pointless to resist, Commander," Zain called out. "The ship is already ours. Surrender, and you may yet have a place in what's to come." Alara's hand closed around Thorne's fallen sidearm. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Then she rolled out of cover, firing as she moved. The energy weapon Zain carried might have been advanced, but it was also slow to recharge. Alara's shots caught him in the shoulder and leg, sending him sprawling. She approached cautiously, keeping her weapon trained on the fallen scientist. "What have you done, Zane? Who are you working for?" Zane laughed, a hollow sound that sent chills down Alara's spine. "Working for? Oh, Commander, you have no idea what's really happening here." Before Alara could question him further, Zane's body began to convulse. His skin rippled and shifted, as if something was moving beneath it. Alara stumbled back in horror as Zane's form changed. Where the xenobiologist had been, there now lay a creature of nightmare. Vaguely humanoid, but with too many limbs, skin that shimmered with an oily iridescence, and eyes that glowed with alien intelligence. What are you?" Alara whispered. The thing that had been Zane chittered, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. "We are the future, Commander, the rightful inheritors of this galaxy, and you humans, you're nothing but stepping stones." Alara's mind raced. The dead world, the advanced technology. It hadn't been left behind by a long-vanished race. It had been planted, bait for an elaborate trap. "How long?" she demanded. "How long have you been infiltrating us?" The creature's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Longer than you can imagine. We've guided your species, shaped your development, all to bring you to this point, to create the perfect vessels for our kind." Rage and revulsion warred within Alara. Everything she'd believed in, everything she'd fought for, it had all been a lie. "Why tell me this?" she asked, her finger tightening on the trigger. "Because it doesn't matter," the thing said. "You've lost, Commander. Your ship is ours. Your crew will be repurposed. And you? You'll be the herald of a new age for humanity, whether you want to be or not." As if on cue, more shapes emerged from the shadows. Crew members, their faces blank, their movements jerky and unnatural. And behind them, more of the alien creatures. Alara knew she was outmatched, but she'd be damned if she'd go down without a fight. She fired, catching one of the possessed crew members in the leg. As they stumbled, she made a break for it, racing towards the nearest emergency escape pod. Alarms blared and weapons fire scorched the walls around her. Alara's lungs burned as she ran, her mind focused on a single goal: survive and warn Earth. She skidded around a corner and there it was, the escape pod. Alara threw herself inside, slamming her hand on the launch controls. As the pod ejected from the Axiom, Alara caught a final glimpse of the ship that had been her home. Its hull was scarred and blackened, and strange organic growths were already beginning to spread across its surface. Tears stung Alara's eyes as the Axiom receded into the distance. She had failed her crew, failed her mission, but she swore then and there that she would not fail humanity. As the escape pod hurtled through space, its emergency beacon broadcasting on all frequencies, Commander Alara Voss began to plan. The Axiom had been lost, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning, and she would make damn sure humanity won.